Welcome to the Serenity Podcast. Our guest today is Seline Shenoy. She's an author and podcaster whose work focuses on personal development, self-esteem, productivity, and culture. Her mission is to help people live up to the truest expression of themselves by building a strong and balanced inner foundation of self-worth by designing a life that's in alignment with their personal vision. Her online podcast and community, The Dreamcatcher, just love that, Seline, connects and encourages thousands of listeners from all over the world to live their dream lives and make a difference. Her newest book, called The Nomadic Soul, helps people find their true sense of self and belonging in the modern world. Welcome to our podcast, Seline.
Oh, thank you for that lovely introduction, Paul. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me to your show. I'm so excited about our conversation.
We're all excited about this. And some of the pre-work that I did in anticipation of this interview, I was getting kind of like stoked because I'm thinking like, okay, this is a little bit out of the ordinary, off the beaten path, the nomadic soul. So maybe you can define what you mean by the nomadic soul, or maybe the word nomadic first, because it's not a common word in our culture. And then as you merge that with the soul, what does that mean?
Mhm.
And then we'll go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So the nomad, when you look at the definition of it, defines someone, it's someone who does not stay in a place for a long time, right? They're constantly on the go, and they find a sense of purpose in doing that. In the past, the ancient nomads, which I refer to in the introduction of the book, I talk about how they do it for survival purposes, right? They go searching for basic necessities like water, greener pastures where they can, grow crops and, raise animals. Uh, but I did a lot of research on the idea of being nomadic and going on journeys. And I kind of noticed this pattern uh, of how people were traveling, not just for survival purposes, they were doing it with an intention to find themselves and to explore a deeper aspect of life. I mean, if we look at religious stories, like we look at characters like Moses, Confucius, all of them talk about travel and pilgrimage and how that is a sort of vital rite of passage for spiritual development. A lot of shamans, holy people used to do that. They would go on these long kind of pilgrimages, as they would call them, to to get more in touch with the deeper aspects of themselves. Even more recent stories, we have Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. We have The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and more recently Wild by Cheryl Strayed. It all talks about how describes going on a journey as this search for self. So I thought, why not explore this concept and see how that can help us excavate the deeper aspects of our being, and how that can actually open up different layers and different kind of facets to who we are. Because I feel that as a society now, we're getting more and more disconnected from this part of ourselves, which, for lack of a better word, our soul, right? That part of us, that wiser part of us that is our compass and points us to a, a direction that would, bring more meaning and purpose and joy. So I just thought that creating a guide like this and using the archetype of a nomadic soul would be useful in understanding how we can find our way and get back to that part of our being that so many people are now neglecting. So that's how I thought about it. And that's how I came up with the name Nomadic Soul.
Love it. There's so many keywords to what you just said there, and a couple of things that I really like got caught my mind, or my attention and my heart, was the excavating the parts within us, to
Mm-hmm.
kind of show us the way and provide the compass. So when you say excavate, um, all the different kinds of people that listen to this podcast, there will be people that are advanced, and they're used to being off-road. They're nomadic, their character, their archetype, just like what you're talking about, right? And yet they could still use your book. They could listen to this and say, oh, yeah, but there's still something in me that's still seeking something.
Mhm.
How do you how do you suggest reconciling that search, that desire, with also being in the present moment and staying within ourselves? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And that's why I created two archetypes, two sub-archetypes of the nomadic soul. And I call them the curious and pioneering spirit, which speaks to the need for freedom, where we want to explore not just the outside world, but our inner world,
Mm,
right? And also defining our identity and balancing that with the needs of the other sub-archetype that I mentioned in the book, the wise and creative sage, which is all about connection and kind of connecting with different aspects of our being, connecting with other people, with other creatures, with nature, with a higher force. So I believe that balancing this need for freedom and connection is what will give us that balance that you're asking about. Um, I mean, I don't want to get too much into detail with it because you can find everything in the book, but I'm just giving a kind of high level view of this.
yes.
I think that there is definitely a way to quench that thirst for seeking, but at the same time be happy with where you are right now in the present moment to stay grounded because
Yes.
you don't want to be like flying all over the place. That's some you don't want to do too much exploring, right? You want to have roots, you want to stay grounded, whether that's physically or within your own self. So it's about striking that balance. And as I believe as human beings, deep in our soul, we need both. People probably need it to, each person probably needs it to a different extent. Maybe some people need more freedom. Maybe some people need more connection. So it's about finding what works for you. And I do offer an assessment that people can take to find out, how much in touch they are with their nomadic soul and, how, whether or not they're meeting the needs of each archetype. And that can kind of guide them uh, in terms of like which chapter they should focus on more. So yeah, that's
Got it.
that's what
Got
I
it.
feel. That's the best way to do it.
So quite often, if not the vast majority of the time, we as authors, speakers, creators, we are creating something that ostensibly is for our audience, but really it's like we're needing to learn something about ourselves. So
Mhm.
what has this journey of creating the Nomadic Soul done for you? Like what unintended consequences did it create? Whether that be, what was that? Or wow, for you. In other words, you set on your journey with a specific intent of writing a book, but what were your surprises along the way? Your revelations, your satorais?
Hmm, that's a good question. Writing this book was an adventure. It took me 4 years to write it. And as any writer would tell you, sitting in front of a blank page is intimidating. But for me, I felt that the minute I heard the nomadic soul, I felt like I was channeling something. And just something was coming through me. And it was like, I can't tell you, Paul, how I created this whole system, this whole framework that I created. Like I was just like, I took a piece of paper and I was voraciously writing. And I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from. Even now, when I look at the book, I'm like, did I write that? So I mean, of course, I kind of embellished it later with more research, and I try to find data and references to back up what I wrote about because I don't want to seem like I'm pulling stuff out of thin air, right? I got to back it up. So writing this book really made me realize that I have also been on this journey. I'm still on this journey. Essentially, the nomadic soul journey is about evolution, right? Evolving. It's about moving to the next stage of consciousness.
Good.
And a lot of religious texts talk about this. A lot of spiritual teachers have talked about that evolution. In Buddhism, they talk about it a lot. So, so this is my way of kind of putting a spotlight on that process and just one of the roads that you can take to to evolve. Um, and I tried not to talk too much about, not to subscribe to a specific path that people are familiar with. So uh, this required me to be a bit daring, I'll have to say, because when I was pitching the book to a lot of publishers, like they didn't really get it. They were a bit like, this is too out there. This is, people are not going to know what this is about. Like, no one's heard this. So it's about, I had to really be sure myself. I had to really get in touch with my purpose and think, okay, I believe in this and I know that this can help people. And once I found that place in me that came from a place of contribution, a sense of I had to have courage, right, to face all the rejections, right? It's quite hurtful to get, you know, negative feedback from people and like, no, people are not going to get it. But I had to find that space in me, that place within me that said, no, this is going to work. Because I've been on this journey myself. Like when I was younger in my 20s, I was in that kind of egocentric frame of mind. I was, well, probably not at like, compared to other 20-year-olds, I think I was a little bit better. But I have taken that journey and I know I had to go through a very dark time in my mid 20s to kind of wake up from that and realize what really matters and to really get in touch with those values and those qualities that are actually going to lead to a life of satisfaction and fulfillment. It's not about the superficial things, you know, how much money you're making, how good looking you are. I was in that world. I kind of socialized with people like that. So, but I always felt a sense of ennui, this apathy that something is wrong here. I don't fit in here. It was just constant. Like I was having a good time and I was in a very glamorous world, but I was just not happy. I felt like there was something missing. And so it took a crisis for me to wake up from that um, in my personal life. So what I'm trying to say here, I have gone on that journey. So I'm still learning. I'm not got it all figured out yet, but I've had my own journey of, you know, going through that process of,
Yeah.
you know, the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell talks about.
I
I've
was
already
just gonna say,
probably one mini hero's journey. I know there's more to go, but so I know what I'm talking about. So as I was writing, I'm like, wow, you know, this is exactly what I went through. So you can't write this without having been through it yourself,
yep.
you know? So to answer your question, it was a kind of validation. My experience validated the book and the book validated my experience. It went both ways. And
Yes.
it really uh, gave me the confidence, it gave me the drive and the passion to really put it forward to the publishers and be like, I believe in this. And I think people need to read this book.
Yeah. Yeah. It
So
sounded like as you walk that fine line between this material world and your soul or your spiritual journey, and as these publishing companies or agents or whoever you were speaking to along the way, they were picking up your vibration in part, but it was also how you were feeling and how clear you were in your message.
exactly.
And there's something to be said about all of us who create anything. It is a hero's journey. Um, some of us meet with like we get a quick hit, like our first product takes off. Mine didn't. It took me, years. There's a product that I've just created that's taken much longer than expected, but my heart's still in it in the very way that you're discussing. So um, let's come back to a theme here, about this nomadic journey. You mentioned in your book that modern society has lost its way. What do you mean by that?
Boy, where do I start?
And how would a person know that if they quote unquote lost their way? I mean, that we don't mean to sound presumptive
Yeah.
or judgmental when we
Mhm.
say that,
Yeah,
but
of course.
the feeling you had, like this doesn't feel right, like it could be in your gut, your heart, could be in your body somatically. Everyone gets a signal. How do they pay attention to that signal? How do they know what that signal is in this regard, this context?
Well, that's a good question. Buddha said that all life is suffering. And that, I mean, doesn't mean literally suffering, but it means that, there are going to be challenges. Life is tough, and it's tougher for some people. Some people have more privilege than others, but you can't escape, the problems that you're inevitably going to face, the loss, the sorrow. So, I mean, I have to say that so that people have perspective, right, on all of this, and it's just part of the journey. But I would say if you feel, I think it comes down to what you feel inside. And what's making this difficult is that people, as I said before, are increasingly disconnected with themselves. So they don't even know the internal climate that's within them.
Yeah.
And typically, a lot of people, they try to um, kind of assuage that by doing things to numb themselves. They'll take all kinds of substances, or they'll go on social media, or they'll become workaholics, all these kind of addictive patterns, which they think is going to give them that relief for that feeling that they have inside. Of course, some of them do need professional help. Maybe they do have those, certain mental health conditions that need a professional. But for the most part, people can manage that internal strife they feel within themselves. Because, Paul, I think we're living in one of the best times ever in history. I mean, we have amazing technology, we're living in sanitary conditions, healthcare is available, we're not living in rampant war where we have to worry about our village being plundered by some, enemy from a nearby state. We're living in very safe times, relatively safe times. So we have plenty of opportunity. We have freedoms. And so the only problem most people face is the ones that they have inside them, right?
Well said.
The self the self-generated kind of mm, demons.
Right.
So, and the good news is that most of that is within your control. Most of that is within your control. Um, but I don't think people have the tools and the guidance to deal with that. I honestly feel that there's certain life skills that they should teach in school and college. Beside, all the academic stuff is, yeah, of course, we need to learn calculus, we need to learn whatever, how to write an essay. But we need life skills, how to, manage our emotions, how to take care of our health. These basic building blocks of life that is actually going to keep you healthy in, mentally, physically, emotionally. People don't have that, right? And with that kind of guidance, we lose our way. And modern society isn't making it easier, because the pace has picked up, uh, and social media technology has made it is just distracting us. So we have lost that connection uh, with ourselves, and we don't even know what's going on anymore.
Yeah.
But luckily for there are an army of people like podcasters like yourself, who are trying to give people those tools that they need to find their way. A lot of free content out there now that people are consuming, which is a good thing, but I don't think it's enough. So, I mean, why I think society has lost its way is because the numbers say it. Mental health issues are on the rise, particularly amongst younger people. The suicide rate has gone up amongst younger people.
Yes.
Um, so, and I've seen the stats, and they're pretty alarming. And it's something that we need to look into and see what is going wrong. This is a systemic issue, and we're not helping young people find their way. We're not giving them the you know, the information that they need to create that life of joy and love and peace. And that's really unfortunate in my opinion. So I'm trying to do my part by writing books like this, writing the blog, the podcast. So I think we need to also create that a different value system for kids these days. I feel like the social media has made it all about um has made life seem more superficial
Mhm.
than it needs to be, you know? So their currency is not um not in alignment with a soulful existence. You know, if
Right.
you're trying to look like, you see young girls trying to putting up these Instagram photos of themselves trying to look like models or their favorite pop star. Um, I mean, that's cute, but in the long run, they need to grow out of that and focus on other things that's going to make them happier. You know,
Yes.
like building a career or having something, you know, contributing to society in some way, but that's not what they are being shown as being desirable, you know? So yeah, I'm concerned about all that when I see trends like that happening.
So I agree with you 100%. I've noticed you and I are students, and we're watching and we're listening people all the time. You know, we study people, you and I.
Yeah.
And I was used to studying people who were, let's say, 40 years and older, and I was completely out of touch unknowingly with the younger generations, plural. So, in the creation of my product called Serenity, which is an app, I had to hook up with a lot of data companies, you know, a lot of tech companies, and all of them are staffed by youngsters, which is really cool because I got to talk to them, I got to know them, and they're like, you know, you got a cool vibe about you. What do you do, Paul? And we got into nice conversations. And I would ask them a simple question. On a scale of 0 to 10, where would you say your stress level is? And their response typically was, "Ha!" And I'd say, what's that number? They're like 12, 14. Seriously. And they're like, I'm serious, but like, I'm still holding it together. You got any ideas? Like, wow. And so dozens of those connections with
Yeah.
youngsters. And I didn't realize until just recently just
Yeah.
how burdened they are without knowing it, because that's the societal upbringing they were brought into, this high
Yeah,
tech
and it's a tough
touch.
economy too. It's a tough economy too. So they have
Yeah,
to contend with that as well,
exactly.
with tuition on the rise.
Yeah.
It's much harder for them now than it is for
So,
our generations.
so through technology, I mean, as I mentioned in a video I just created the other day, if you're speaking to a 60-year-old, it's a totally different language, so to speak. The words
Right, yeah.
sound the same, but the way of
Yeah.
getting to them through podcast, through apps, through social media, just like you said before, is
Hmm.
is more of the way. But they're a little bit anti about that too. Like, don't come at me with your teaching, come at me with authenticity, because they crave
Right.
that authenticity.
Yes, they do.
So
And they're very sensitive to that. They have like these antennas that grown, like they know whether you're genuine or not. And that's something that the younger generations, they're getting better at that.
yes, yeah, they're
Yeah.
better at that than in my generation. We didn't have to
Yeah.
watch for that as much. You know, now it's just like, my God, there's Babylon, you know, at the gate. So, um, in terms of when we're focusing on our youth, what are ways for them to understand? How do I ask this question? Like, it's forming as I speak, Celine. Could they be on their nomadic journey without even knowing it? And they'd be self-judging, saying, I haven't made enough, I haven't done enough, while they're actually doing the work. Is that possible? And how would you explain it to them, saying it's almost like a hand on their shoulder? You know what? Keep going. It's
Yeah.
better than you see and feel and think right now, because your receptors have been trained to see only the five senses, as Buddha would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say don't be too hard on yourself. I mean, we're all at different stages in our personal evolution. Um, but just continue doing what feels right for you. And if you need support, I mean, never feel like you're alone, is what I would say. Reach out to, your elders, reach out for, you can speak to a school counselor or college counselor. If you don't have that in your household, you you can speak to a trusted friend, like get a support group, find people who you can talk to. Don't go it alone. I
Yeah.
think that's also another thing, this loneliness epidemic. People feel like they have to do it all by themselves. No, you don't. That's human beings are social creatures. We're pack animals. We need each other. So acknowledging the fact that you don't have to be like that rugged individualist who has to do it all on their own, and they've kind of glamorized that, and that is totally working against us. We need community. So I think younger people need to reach out to other people and uh kind of give them that comfort, like, hey, you're doing okay, kid, like keep going. And if they need specific tools, if they need information about specific things, there's also ways to do that. I mean, we're living in the information age. There's no excuse, right? You just Google something and you get all the data information that you want, all for free. So yeah, I think just being proactive, getting out of victim mentality, that is also something that can really work against people. Like, woe is me. I see that a lot in on social media too, like on TikTok, and just people complaining. Like, complaining is not going to get you anywhere.
Right.
Like, yeah, acknowledge the challenges, acknowledge the problems, and then do something about it. And if you have any heavy emotions around it, process it. Find healthy ways to process it. There's always a way.
Yes, there is. Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking of an experience that I had when my wife passed away 7 years ago
Okay.
to this summer.
Hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At first, I had a little igloo around me and I needed it, for that grief and that mourning period. And I remember like I would plan out my day. Okay, I'm going to go to the store today. Like that was like nomadic for me at that time. And I'm relating this to, this post-COVID generations, of Gen X, Y, Z and millennials who got hit the hardest by the COVID experience across the world.
Hmm.
So it's a form of grief because the trauma occurred, and there were multiple traumas, the likes of which we've never seen in our culture. I mean, this side
Yeah.
of the wars that used to happen, across the world that you referred to in the beginning of our podcast.
Yeah.
And I think of that journey that I had, like there were days where I had to like, what's the phrase, Celine? Like kind of get that gut going. I'm gonna do something today for
Yeah.
for myself. I wasn't thinking of others yet, of my
Yeah.
products and my other things that I was about to do. What's one step I can take today? Now that I could do. And I would assemble a group of healers that I would jump on the phone with and do some healing stuff. I had PTSD, which would make sense, watching my
Yeah.
wife fall apart from cancer, in the hospital. That PTSD cleared in 20 minutes with the right kind of healer that I worked with. I've shared that story with dozens of people, and I hear disbelief. They don't believe that you could clear that deep of a wound that simply. It's not the speed that it cleared. So I wonder, with this barrage of information, including this podcast, how do we simplify? Like, there's a skit on SNL called Simmer Down Now. Did you ever see that skit?
No, I'm not.
It's crazy funny. It came out of the 90s with Cherry O'Terry. How do we simmer down with this
Mm,
intake of this massive barrage of information to return to this nomadic journeying within, which is what dawned on me when we first started talking. Oh, it's not the journey out
yeah.
there. There's the nomadic journey within. And I think what you said before was you kind of you navigate that inner outer journey, which
Yeah.
is a form of mastery. So what would you suggest how a person, young or old, uh, what's the access point? Is it the mind?
You mean
That
when you're experiencing grief?
No, what I mean is the access, what's the way, what's the talisman, what's the way they begin the
Mhm.
journey? How do they start accessing these deeper parts of themselves? Do they do it through their mind? Or do they start trusting something deeper, like maybe their heart, for example?
Yeah. So you have to first know yourself. Like, how do you best access stillness? Do you like going out in nature? Do you like listening to music? Do you like meditation? You have to find an activity that allows you to really connect with that part of yourself, and it's different for everybody. I have one whole chapter in the book about where I talk about connecting with your inner world. And in that chapter, I offer different pathways that you can take to do that. Um, so your question was, how do you get in touch with that part of yourself? I
Yeah.
just, um,
Yes. Yeah. What's the access point? Like, how do I begin that journey? For you and me, I think it was kind of simpler. Well, in today's
yeah,
world where the barrage is happening and
yeah.
it's
So,
distracting us.
so stillness, just, just get away from the noise, get away from the distraction,
Yeah.
take some time out, however long you need it,
Yeah.
and just be with yourself. Like a lot of people are scared to do that now because they're so overstimulated. And without, they feel like without that stimulation, it's like the equivalent of dying. Like suddenly it's super quiet and there's like nothing happening. But they've had, I don't know if you've heard of those silent retreats.
Yes.
Uh, I think they're called Vipassana.
Yes.
And I know some people have done it and they've told me about their experiences. And they said the first couple of days is horrible because your mind is just like screaming, you know? It's like, super turbulent waters. But over time, it kind of calms down, becomes, very placid. And so it's just pushing through that time when all that resistance comes up. And then over time, and for a lot of people, meditation is the access point. Meditation. I'm not big on meditation. I'm more like I meditate when I run. So that's what I'm saying. It's going to be different for everybody.
Yes.
But most people these days swear by meditation. So if that's something, and they have all types of them, so I would suggest like experimenting and trying the different types of meditation and see which one works for you, if it works for you. Um, so I would just boil it down to just carving some time out in your schedule just to be with yourself. And if you're inclined to, you can journaling, writing down your thoughts. Don't worry about making grammatical mistakes or whether you're sounding coherent. Just write like whatever comes to your mind.
Yes.
That's very therapeutic. Um, so I would say just try different tools, see what works for you. But once you do find something that works for you, stick with it. Like carve out time in your schedule to do it on a regular basis because that is your me time. That is
Yes.
your time to be with yourself. That is your personal, you're dating yourself, as I'd like to call it. So make sure you protect that and stick with it.
Agreed. The moment you began speaking about it, I had a vibe. Uh, as you mentioned before, and I paraphrase the way you said it, only those who have been there can take you there, right? So you've been there before, not just in the journey itself, but in the intent, because the intent is what creates the experience. It creates the beginning of something.
Right.
Um, the feeling I had was, hmm, so let's pretend that we're all like instead of talking about it conceptually, which is great because that's how we learn, we take in new ideas or it reminds us of things that we already know Socratically. How about like just for a nice moment of silence right now, 10 or
Hmm.
15 seconds. And the reason I said is because as people are listening to this, they might be walking, they might be driving in their car, they might be sitting at their computer, and they've got three other things they're thinking about. So how can we, this is a rhetorical question, go into the stillness just for, let's do it for 10 or 15 seconds, return to the nomad within. So with your eyes open or closed, just notice your breath, no matter where you're sitting. If you're driving, just notice how you're feeling. Notice your surroundings. You can be perfectly aware, um, even if you're doing something active. That would be called mindfulness, right? Uh, the intent behind this is that you become the observer, that you listen and you feel and you're fully present, even if a part of you doesn't know how to or is a little bit afraid because this is energy on the inside. Like, ooh, what do I do with this energy, right? So just notice how you're feeling, and we'll be silent for about 5 or 10 seconds. Excellent. Even one moment of awareness can breed incredible breakthroughs. You know that for your own self.
Yeah,
Yeah. And for those that are listening, Seline is she's our proxy, to she's our guide to the inner and outer realms. And we need both. That's what I hear you saying, Seline.
that's right.
So if you journey within all the time, it gets very yin. It becomes imbalanced. Like we need yin and yang, right? So when you journey within and you do some of that self-healing, like what I refer to that I did, and then I could go back out and I could start connecting with people again. I'm like, wow, maybe I'm okay at this. Maybe things are going to be okay. That's what it's really saying on the inside. I'm going to be okay.
Right.
Life is okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So, how would you like to conclude? What's the coolest stuff? We're all sitting with you in a room together, right? We were looking forward to seeing Seline. Seline is just about to say, okay, we don't want to say goodbye. This is like a farewell because we're going to get together again sometime.
As
What would
well.
you like to impart to people as we say, um, we're about to embark on a new journey, a nomadic journey?
I would say realize that there's more to life than the mundane. And yeah, I know most people are, having a daily grind and working 9 to 5, or they're just going about their business, whatever they're doing. But take a moment to just acknowledge the fact that you're alive and that you're living in this magnificent, beautiful planet, in the middle of like a massive universe, and maybe in multiverses, excuse me. So just take some time to carve out a sense of wonder, and like the way we used to have that sense of wonder as a child. So don't lose that part of yourself. See the beauty in even the most simple things, like a flower, um, or watching a beautiful performance, listening to a piece of music. So make time to get in touch with that ethereal, sublime kind of um, aspect of life. Because I believe life is a gift. We get so lost in the business of everyday living that we miss out on the magic that we can experience every day if we just take that time out to acknowledge the small things, that a lot of us take for granted. An airplane, tell someone that they could fly in the sky 100 years ago and they'd be like, you're nuts. I mean, just really taking that time to be grateful for everything that you have and to see the wonder in this beautiful journey of life. That's what I would tell people.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wow. Well, thank you, Celine. There's so much more that we could journey into, and maybe we'll do that in a future interview.
Yeah,
I
this has
want to
been
thank you.
fun. Great
Yes,
question. From one podcaster to another.
oh, well, kudos to you, my friend. Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a genuine experience because I mentioned to you earlier, like this is a great learning experience for me, and I might be proxy, but it's just like I get to step back and go, okay, I gotta process what I learned from Celine here, because there's the visible if someone watches this as a YouTube video, and then there is the auditory, but then there is the energetic sideband, which is the
mm,
majority of it that we're listening to or that we're feeling. So there's that to process, and that doesn't take a lot of energy per se.
yeah.
Um, but I love how you speak of this journey that you've had to walk on your own. So you are our guide through this process. You're one of the most unique persons I've ever met.
Thank you.
I've never met anybody who talked about it in this regard or called it something that we can understand. So kudos to you, my friend.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much, Celine.
Thank
And
you, Paul.
aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Thanks.